What if I told you that one of the most powerful voices in early Christianity was erased from history, not because of sin, but because of a truth too dangerous for the church to allow? Mary Magdalene, often misunderstood as nothing more than a sinner, was, in reality, one of the most significant figures in the formation of Christian teachings. But her story, her gospel, has been silenced for centuries. Why? What was so threatening about the truth she carried with her? There is something deeply unsettling about the way the church shaped the story of Mary Magdalene, casting her not as the teacher and visionary she was, but as a penitent prostitute. Why did the church feel the need to erase her from the narrative? Could it be that the real story of Mary Magdalene and her role in the early Christian movement threatened the very structures of power that were being put into place? What did the Gospel of Mary reveal about early Christianity that was too radical for the established order? In this video, we're diving into the truth that the church didn't want you to know. We'll uncover how the Gospel of Mary Magdalene not only reveals a Christianity centered around personal revelation, wisdom, and the divine feminine, but also exposes the battles for spiritual authority that shaped the church as we know it today. This is not just about a historical figure. This is about reclaiming the lost wisdom that has been hidden for centuries. As we explore the forgotten Gospel of Mary Magdalene, you'll come to understand why her message was so revolutionary. You'll see why her story, and the story of the many women like her, was deliberately erased from Christian tradition. But perhaps most importantly, you will learn how the recovery of Mary's voice can help us understand our own path towards spiritual freedom, awakening, and empowerment. If you've ever felt that there was more to Christianity than what we've been told, or if you've wondered what the early Christians really believed, this video will open your eyes. Mary Magdalene's gospel holds the key to a hidden history of faith, equality, and personal connection to the divine. This is not just about Mary's gospel. It's about reclaiming your own power, your own voice, and your own connection to God. Join me as we uncover the secrets of Mary Magdalene's story, the transformative power of her teachings, and what they reveal about the true nature of Christianity. If this message resonates with you, if it sparks something deep within your soul, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe, so together we can continue to uncover the forgotten truths of history and awaken the divine wisdom within all of us. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, a groundbreaking revelation. Imagine for a moment a world where the divine is not controlled by institutions, but something that each soul can access directly through their own revelations and inner wisdom. In that world, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is not just an ancient text, it's a living, breathing testament to the power of inner truth, to the spiritual knowledge that exists within each of us, waiting to be unlocked. This gospel, though lost for centuries, reveals a different kind of Christianity, one where wisdom transcends institutional authority and where personal revelation is as sacred as Scripture. Mary Magdalene was no ordinary follower of Christ. She wasn't just the woman who saw Jesus after his resurrection. She was the one entrusted with his deepest teachings. She was the one who held the keys to spiritual truth. But it's only now, through the rediscovery of her gospel, that we can begin to understand the full significance of her role. Her story challenges everything we thought we knew about early Christianity, about gender roles, and about the true nature of divine authority. The Gospel of Mary is not just a text about the past. It's a message for the present, and perhaps even more so for the future. It's a message that calls us to reclaim our inner wisdom, to trust the divine spark that resides within us, and to reject the notion that salvation or spiritual truth must come from outside of ourselves. We are told in this gospel that salvation doesn't come through fear or obedience to a distant authority, but through inner knowledge, through a transformative awakening that leads us back to the divine. It's clear that the Church, in its drive for power and control, sought to suppress this gospel. Why? Because Mary Magdalene's teachings, and by extension the teachings of the Gnostic tradition, threatened the very foundation of the Church's hierarchical structure. The early Church was not as monolithic as we have been led to believe. It was diverse, filled with different voices, each offering their own understanding of the teachings of Jesus. But as the Church began to solidify its power, it needed to create a unified narrative, one that centered on male authority and strict institutionalized control. The Gnostic Gospels, like the Gospel of Mary, simply didn't fit into that vision. These texts presented a Christianity that was decentralized, that valued personal revelation and spiritual equality. In many ways, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene offers us a glimpse into what Christianity might have been if it had embraced the full diversity of its early teachings. This gospel doesn't present a faith of external rituals and dogmas, but one of personal spiritual experience and internal transformation. It speaks of a Christianity that values the wisdom of the feminine, a Christianity where women are not silenced, but celebrated as leaders and teachers of the faith. Mary Magdalene was not just a follower of Christ. She was a visionary, a prophet, and a spiritual authority. She was entrusted with the most sacred knowledge, and yet her role has been systematically erased from the Christian tradition. Why? What was so dangerous about Mary Magdalene's message? At the heart of her gospel lies a radical understanding of sin and salvation. In the Gospel of Mary, we learn that sin is not a stain on the soul that must be wiped away through suffering or atonement. Instead, sin is ignorance, ignorance of our true nature, ignorance of our divine origins. This understanding shifts the focus of salvation from external acts of penance to internal awakening. It teaches that salvation is not something that happens to us, but something we actively participate in by remembering who we truly are. Salvation is not a matter of appeasing a wrathful God, but of rediscovering our connection to the divine within. This is a profoundly healing message. It frees us from the burden of guilt and shame that so often accompanies traditional understandings of sin. It tells us that we are not broken, that we are not inherently flawed, but that we simply need to remember our true divine nature. This is a message of empowerment, one that tells us that the path to spiritual liberation is not through submission or obedience, but through awakening to the truth that lies within us all. As we consider the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, it's important to remember that this is not just an ancient text. It's a call to action for us today. The lessons in this Gospel speak to the deep hunger in our modern world for a more inclusive, compassionate, and authentic spirituality. In a world that often values external validation, status, and power, the Gospel of Mary offers us a way back to the simplicity and beauty of the divine that resides within us all. It calls us to listen to our inner wisdom, to trust in our own connection with the divine, and to resist the forces of suppression that seek to control and limit our spiritual growth. This gospel invites us to reclaim what was once lost, to honor the voices of women in the spiritual journey, to reject the idea that divine wisdom is something that must be controlled by an external hierarchy, and to remember that each of us carries the potential for spiritual enlightenment within. The teachings of Mary Magdalene challenge us to step into our own spiritual authority, to trust our experiences of the divine, and to live authentically in alignment with the truth we discover. The Gospel's emphasis on inner knowledge, on personal revelation, is not just a relic of the past. It is a beacon for our present and future. As we face a world filled with division, conflict, and confusion, the teachings of Mary Magdalene remind us that true peace and wisdom come from within. They call us to stop searching for answers outside of ourselves and instead look within, where the divine truth has always been waiting to be discovered. The fact that this gospel was hidden for so long, that the voice of Mary Magdalene was silenced for centuries, is a powerful reminder of the forces that have historically sought to suppress the truth. But the gospel's rediscovery is a testament to the resilience of truth itself. No matter how hard the forces of oppression try to bury it, the truth will always find its way to the surface. And just as Mary Magdalene's gospel has been rediscovered, so too can we rediscover the divine wisdom that lies within each of us, waiting to be awakened. In our modern world, we are faced with the same question that the early Christians faced. What kind of faith will we embrace? Will we continue to follow the hierarchical, institutionalized religion that tells us that salvation is something external, something we must earn or beg for? Or will we choose the path of personal revelation, the path that Mary Magdalene walked, where salvation comes from within, where each of us has direct access to the divine, and where wisdom is not dictated by a central authority, but discovered through our own experiences? The Gospel of Mary Magdalene offers us the opportunity to embrace a spirituality that is truly transformative, one that empowers us to reclaim our spiritual authority, to trust in our own inner wisdom, and to live authentically in alignment with the divine. It calls us to step into our power, to honor the divine wisdom within us, and to share that wisdom with the world. The lessons of this gospel are not just for the past, they are for now, for today, and for the future. So, as we reflect on the powerful teachings of Mary Magdalene, let us remember that her message is not just hers. It is a message for all of us, a message of spiritual liberation, of personal transformation, and of the divine wisdom that resides within each of us. Let us embrace this wisdom, trust in our own divine connection, and step into the spiritual authority that is already ours. The time for reclaiming our divine wisdom is now. The time for awakening to the truth within is now. And as we walk this path, we carry the teachings of Mary Magdalene with us, guiding us toward a future where spiritual equality, personal revelation, and divine wisdom are valued above all. The erasure of women in early Christianity, a struggle for power and truth. In the early days of Christianity, the teachings of Jesus were not as rigidly defined as they are today. Christianity, in its infancy, was a fluid, diverse movement where multiple voices, ideas, and interpretations were not only welcome but necessary. It was a faith that allowed the divine to be experienced intimately and personally. Women, especially figures like Mary Magdalene, were central to this early Christian experience, not merely as followers, but as leaders, teachers, and visionaries in their own right. Yet, as Christianity became institutionalized and began to take shape into the structured faith we recognize today, the voices of women were systematically erased. Mary Magdalene, once seen as one of the most significant and powerful figures in early Christianity, was relegated to the status of a sinner, her role diminished and misunderstood. Her story, once celebrated as a symbol of strength, wisdom, and spiritual authority, was rewritten. The transformation of Mary from a teacher and leader to a repentant prostitute is not just a historical tragedy, it is part of a broader pattern of erasing women's contributions from the sacred narrative. But why was this done? And why does it matter to us today? The answer lies in the battle for power and control. As the early church began to define itself, as leaders like Paul and Peter established doctrine and laid the groundwork for the church's hierarchy, it became increasingly important to consolidate power. And what better way to do that than by suppressing the voices of those who might challenge that authority? The erasure of women from spiritual leadership wasn't accidental. It was a calculated move to limit who could claim spiritual authority. In the Gospel of Mary, we see glimpses of a completely different Christian community, one where women like Mary Magdalene were not only included but revered as teachers. In this text, Mary shares her direct teachings from Jesus, wisdom that the male apostles struggled to understand. She was not just a follower, but a conduit of sacred knowledge, a spiritual leader in her own right. Yet as the Christian Church evolved and became more centralized, especially after the Roman Empire adopted Christianity as the state religion, the voices of women were increasingly marginalized. The Gospel of Mary and other Gnostic texts were labeled heretical and systematically destroyed, for they promoted an image of Christianity that threatened the new institutionalized church. The importance of this process cannot be overstated. By marginalizing figures like Mary Magdalene, the emerging church was able to assert its dominance and claim exclusive authority over religious knowledge and practice. Women, who had once held significant roles in these early Christian communities, were pushed to the periphery. Their voices were drowned out by a growing hierarchy that prioritized male leadership, defining the role of women in the church as one of submission and support, rather than leadership. This distortion of Mary Magdalene's role has persisted throughout history. For centuries, the Church's portrayal of Mary as a prostitute became entrenched in the popular imagination. This image, far from being an innocent misinterpretation, was part of a broader strategy to suppress the powerful truth that she embodied. The idea of Mary as a fallen woman made it easier for the Church to dismiss her as irrelevant to the true spiritual narrative. By associating her with sin and repentance, the Church ensured that her true role as a teacher and prophet would remain obscured. But why does this matter to us today? In our current age, where voices are still being suppressed, especially those of women and marginalized communities, the recovery of Mary Magdalene's true story is both a spiritual and political act. It serves as a reminder that spiritual authority is not something that can be dictated by institutions. It comes from within. The divine wisdom that Mary Magdalene possessed is not something locked away in ancient texts. It is still alive within each of us, waiting to be awakened. The suppression of women's voices in Christianity is not just an issue of historical injustice. It is an issue that affects the way we experience spirituality today. The exclusion of women from leadership roles in the Church has created a spiritual environment that often sidelines their contributions, experiences, and perspectives. This marginalization has had a profound impact on the way spirituality is practiced and understood. By relegating women to secondary roles, the Church has, in many ways, shaped a Christianity that is less inclusive, less compassionate, and less whole. As we reflect on Mary Magdalene's story, we are invited to consider how much of the Church's teachings have been shaped by a limited patriarchal perspective. Imagine what the world might look like if women's voices were valued equally in spiritual matters. What if the Church had embraced Mary Magdalene as a teacher, as someone with spiritual authority? How different would the history of Christianity and the world have been if women had been allowed to lead, teach, and guide with the same spiritual authority as men? The Gospel of Mary offers us a window into this alternative Christian vision, a vision where spiritual equality is a central tenet, where the divine feminine is honored alongside the masculine. In this gospel, Mary Magdalene does not simply echo the words of others. She teaches directly from her own experience, sharing a vision of the soul's journey toward liberation. Her message is not just about the past. It is a call to action for the present. It challenges us to reclaim our spiritual authority, to trust our own inner wisdom, and to stand up for the voices that have been silenced. The Gospel calls us to move beyond the rigid structures of power that have shaped religious traditions for centuries. It asks us to recognize that true spiritual leadership is not about external titles or hierarchical power, but about authenticity, wisdom, and the ability to lead with love and compassion. In the story of Mary Magdalene, we see a model for leadership that is deeply personal and deeply spiritual, a leadership that comes from within rather than from external institutions. But the fight for spiritual equality is not over. In many ways, the same forces that sought to suppress Mary Magdalene's voice still exist today. Women, especially in religious communities, continue to fight for their rightful place as spiritual leaders. The battle for gender equality in the church, as in society, is ongoing. The recovery of Mary Magdalene's gospel and her story is part of that larger struggle to reclaim lost wisdom and restore balance to a spiritual tradition that has long been skewed by the dominance of one perspective. The question, then, is not just about what happened in the past, but about how we can move forward today. How can we reclaim the wisdom that was lost when the voices of women were silenced? How can we build a more inclusive spiritual community, one where all voices are heard and valued? The story of Mary Magdalene is a powerful reminder that we are all capable of spiritual leadership, regardless of gender or background. It is a call to each of us to trust in our divine connection, to embrace the wisdom within, and to live authentically in alignment with that wisdom. In reclaiming Mary Magdalene's true story, we are not just restoring her voice, we are restoring the spiritual balance that has been lost. We are rediscovering a Christianity that values all people, all voices, and all perspectives. We are building a faith that is inclusive, compassionate, and deeply connected to the divine wisdom that resides in every human being. As we walk this path, let us remember that the true power of spiritual leadership is not about control or dominance, but about love, wisdom, and the ability to help others awaken to their own divine truth. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene invites us to step into this leadership, to reclaim our spiritual authority, and to honor the divine wisdom that lives within each of us. It's time to reclaim the lost voices of our spiritual history, to restore the balance, and to create a world where everyone can lead, teach, and share their wisdom freely. Mary Magdalene's legacy is not just about the past, it's about the future, and about the kind of world we want to create. A world where spiritual equality is the norm, and where the divine feminine is just as honored and respected as the divine masculine. Mary Magdalene. From sinner to spiritual authority, the transformation of a soul. Mary Magdalene's transformation is not just a personal story of redemption, but a powerful message for all of us. Her journey from being branded as a sinner to being recognized as a spiritual authority is a journey that holds profound lessons for those who seek to reclaim their own spiritual power. For centuries, Mary has been misunderstood. Her name has been associated with sin, repentance, and shame. But what if this was not the true story of who she was? What if Mary was, in fact, one of the most powerful figures in early Christianity, someone who stood not in the shadows of the apostles but beside them as a leader and a teacher? The story of Mary Magdalene as we know it today has been tainted by centuries of misinterpretation and deliberate distortion. For so long, the church told us that she was a fallen woman, a prostitute who found redemption through Jesus. But the reality, as revealed in the Gospel of Mary, tells a completely different story. A story where Mary is not a sinner but a teacher, not a follower but a leader, and not a victim but a visionary. The Gospel of Mary offers a glimpse into a Christianity that was radically inclusive and empowering, one where women like Mary were not only valued, but honored as equals. It is a Christianity that valued personal revelation over institutional authority, where spiritual leadership came from wisdom, not from titles or external approval. It is a Christianity that recognized that divine wisdom is not reserved for a select few, but is accessible to all who are open to receiving it. Mary Magdalene was not just a witness to the resurrection, she was one of the first people to experience the transformative power of Christ's teachings. She was entrusted with knowledge and wisdom that the apostles did not fully understand. In the Gospel of Mary, we see Mary sharing a profound vision with the apostles, one that reveals the path of the soul and the process of spiritual liberation. It is a vision of truth, of awakening, and of remembering our divine essence. But in this gospel, Mary's voice is not welcomed with open arms. It is met with skepticism, doubt, and even rejection. Why was Mary's message so threatening to the apostles? Why did they challenge her authority? The answer lies in the patriarchal structures that were beginning to take shape in the early church. The apostles, though they were Jesus' closest followers, were still deeply influenced by the social norms of their time, norms that saw women as inferior, as incapable of holding spiritual authority. When Mary shared her vision, they questioned whether Jesus would have entrusted such knowledge to a woman. They doubted her experience, her authority, and even her integrity. But Mary did not back down. She did not retreat in the face of their skepticism. Instead, she stood firm in her truth, knowing that the wisdom she carried was not hers alone. It was divine, and it was meant to be shared. This confrontation between Mary and the apostles is not just a historical event. It is a powerful metaphor for the struggle that continues today. It is a struggle for spiritual authority, for recognition, and for the right to speak our truth in the face of opposition. The resistance Mary faced is the same resistance that many women and marginalized communities face today as they fight for their voices to be heard. It is the same struggle that we all face when we stand in our power and challenge the structures that seek to silence us. But Mary's story is not one of defeat. It is a story of victory, of resilience, and of reclaiming one's divine authority. In the face of rejection and doubt, Mary continued to lead with grace and wisdom. She did not need the approval of the apostles to know her worth. She knew who she was and what she was called to do. And ultimately, it is her story, her wisdom, and her spiritual authority that have survived. The church may have sought to erase her, but the truth of who Mary Magdalene was cannot be silenced. This is where we can learn a vital lesson. True spiritual authority does not come from titles, institutions, or the approval of others. It comes from within. It comes from knowing who we are, understanding the wisdom we carry, and having the courage to speak our truth, even when others try to silence us. Mary Magdalene's transformation teaches us that we are all capable of stepping into our own spiritual power. No matter our background, no matter our gender, we all have access to divine wisdom, and we all have the potential to lead with that wisdom. The question that Mary's story asks us is this: are we willing to trust in our own inner authority? Are we willing to stand firm in our truth even when the world doubts us? Are we ready to embrace the wisdom that resides within us and share it with the world? The transformation of Mary Magdalene from sinner to spiritual authority is a reminder that our spiritual journeys are not linear. We may face setbacks, we may be misunderstood, but if we continue to trust in our divine connection, we will find our way to the truth that sets us free. Mary Magdalene's story is also a call to embrace the divine feminine, the wisdom, intuition, and compassion that has been suppressed for so long in many spiritual traditions. In a world that has often valued masculine qualities of power, control, and dominance, Mary's story invites us to honor the feminine qualities of nurturing, healing, and wisdom. The divine feminine is not a separate or lesser aspect of the divine. It is an essential part of the whole. Mary Magdalene's journey shows us that we must reclaim the divine feminine, not only in our spirituality, but in our lives, in our communities, and in the world. But reclaiming the divine feminine is not just about recognizing women's roles in spiritual leadership. It is about recognizing that all of us, regardless of gender, carry within us the divine feminine energy. We all have the capacity to nurture, to heal, to guide, and to lead with wisdom and compassion. By embracing this energy within ourselves, we can begin to heal the wounds of division and inequality, both within ourselves and in our communities. Mary Magdalene's story challenges us to reconsider our understanding of sin, redemption, and spiritual authority. It asks us to look beyond the surface and explore the deeper, more transformative truths that lie within. It shows us that spiritual power is not about being perfect or pure in the eyes of others. It is about being true to ourselves, to our divine nature, and to the wisdom we have been given. As we reflect on Mary Magdalene's journey, we are reminded that the path of spiritual awakening is not about conforming to the expectations of others. It is about finding our own way, trusting in the wisdom that comes from within, and embracing our unique role in the larger spiritual narrative. Mary's story is one of courage, authenticity, and love. And it is a story that is still unfolding today. So, as we step into our own spiritual authority, let us remember Mary Magdalene. Let us honor the divine wisdom within us all, and let us lead with love, compassion, and grace. We have all been entrusted with a sacred truth. Let us speak it boldly, without fear or hesitation. Let us stand firm in our power, knowing that the wisdom we carry is not just for us, it is for the world. And let us remember that just like Mary, we too are capable of transforming the world with the divine wisdom that resides within us. The story of Mary Magdalene is more than just an ancient tale of one woman's spiritual journey. It is a living testament to the divine wisdom that has been hidden for centuries, waiting for the moment when the world was ready to awaken to its truth. The Gospel of Mary, a long-forgotten text, has been rediscovered, offering us a glimpse into a Christianity that was radically inclusive, deeply spiritual, and profoundly transformative. This gospel, buried for so long, speaks to our current time, calling us to reclaim what was lost, to embrace the divine wisdom that resides within us all, and to awaken to the power we carry as spiritual beings. The resurrection of the Gospel of Mary is not just about recovering an ancient text. It is about recovering our connection to the divine wisdom that has always been a part of us. It is about returning to a time when spiritual authority was not dominated by hierarchical structures, but was something that everyone could access directly through their own inner truth and personal revelation. Mary Magdalene, in the gospel attributed to her, was not just a follower of Christ. She was a teacher, a leader, and a visionary who held sacred knowledge, wisdom, and insight into the nature of the soul and its journey to liberation. Mary Magdalene's gospel is a profound gift that calls us to reconsider our understanding of spirituality. For centuries, the Church has told us that salvation and spiritual power come through obedience, penance, and adherence to external authority. But the teachings of Mary Magdalene, as revealed in her gospel, show us that salvation is not something that can be earned or bought. It is something that comes from within, through remembering who we truly are, through awakening to the divine knowledge that already exists inside of us. The Gospel of Mary is an invitation to step into our spiritual power, to trust the wisdom that resides in our hearts, and to live authentically according to the divine truth we carry within. This truth, that spiritual authority comes from within, was too radical for the early church. The establishment of institutionalized Christianity, with its male-dominated leadership and rigid structure, needed to control the narrative of what was sacred, what was true, and who could lead. Mary Magdalene, as a woman with spiritual wisdom, threatened this narrative. Her gospel was not just an expression of spiritual insight. It was a challenge to the power structures that were being formed. In an effort to consolidate control, the Church pushed her teachings aside, erasing her from the historical record. But the divine truth that Mary Magdalene carried could not be destroyed. It has survived through time, ready to be reclaimed by those who seek truth, healing, and spiritual awakening. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Mary is a spiritual awakening for our time. We live in a world where the need for personal revelation, spiritual equality, and inner wisdom has never been greater. In an era dominated by external systems of power, we are beginning to see that true spirituality is not something that can be controlled or imposed from the outside. It is something that must be discovered and nurtured from within. The Gospel of Mary calls us to trust in our own divine connection, to reclaim the power that is rightfully ours, and to embrace the wisdom that has always been available to us. This spiritual awakening is not just about understanding ancient texts. It is about understanding ourselves. It is about remembering that we are all divine beings, capable of great spiritual insight and leadership. We no longer need to rely on external authorities to tell us who we are or what we are capable of. The truth of who we are is already within us, waiting to be awakened. Mary Magdalene's teachings remind us that spiritual wisdom is not a distant ideal. It is something we carry inside of us, waiting to be recognized and expressed. But this awakening is not always easy. It requires us to question the systems that have shaped our understanding of spirituality, to break free from the chains of old beliefs, and to step into a new vision of who we are and what we are capable of. It asks us to reclaim the divine feminine, the aspect of the divine that has been suppressed and marginalized for centuries. The divine feminine is not just a feminine energy. It is the wisdom of intuition, compassion, creativity, and healing. It is the energy that nurtures life and leads us back to our divine truth. And just as Mary Magdalene embodied this divine feminine wisdom, so too do we. Reclaiming the divine feminine does not mean rejecting the masculine. It means embracing the balance between the two. It means recognizing that true spiritual leadership is not about power over others, but about power with others. It is about recognizing that we all have something valuable to contribute to the spiritual journey. It is about stepping into our own unique gifts and sharing them with the world. Mary Magdalene's Gospel is a call for each of us to embrace our spiritual authority, to trust our inner wisdom, and to lead with love, compassion, and authenticity. In a world that often encourages us to look outside ourselves for answers, Mary's story teaches us that the answers are already inside. We do not need to seek approval from external authorities. We already have everything we need to connect with the divine. The Gospel of Mary reminds us that salvation, healing, and spiritual awakening are not things that can be found through external rituals or dogma. They are things that can be discovered within through personal revelation and inner guidance. We have the power to heal ourselves, to awaken to our divine nature, and to step into the spiritual power that is waiting for us. This is a message of liberation. It is a message of freedom, freedom from the need to conform, freedom from the idea that we are powerless, and freedom from the notion that spiritual authority belongs only to a select few. The Gospel of Mary is a reminder that we are all capable of spiritual awakening, that we all have access to divine wisdom, and that we all have the power to lead, to teach, and to guide others on their spiritual journeys. As we look to the future, we are called to create a world where spiritual equality is the norm, where both the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine are honored equally, and where all voices are heard and valued. The resurrection of the Gospel of Mary invites us to step into this future, one where spiritual authority is not about dominance or control, but about love, wisdom, and authenticity. We are not meant to walk this path alone. We are meant to walk it together, supporting one another, awakening together, and leading together. The journey that Mary Magdalene began so long ago is not over. It is continuing now, in each of us. As we reclaim her teachings, as we awaken to the wisdom that lies within us, we are part of a collective awakening that is transforming the world. The divine truth that Mary Magdalene carried is still alive today, and it is calling us to awaken, to lead, and to embrace the divine wisdom within us. This is the time for spiritual awakening. This is the time for us to step into our power, to trust our inner wisdom, and to share that wisdom with the world. Let us honor the legacy of Mary Magdalene and the divine wisdom she carried, and let us walk boldly into the future, embracing the spiritual authority that is already ours. May the teachings of Mary Magdalene guide us as we reclaim our divine wisdom and spiritual power. May we lead with love, compassion, and truth, and may we create a world where the wisdom of all is honored and celebrated. As we come to the end of this journey, reflecting on the teachings and wisdom that have been passed down through the ages, I am filled with a profound sense of gratitude and reverence. The story of Mary Magdalene is more than just a tale from history. It is a story that speaks to us today, reminding us of the transformative power of inner wisdom, the divine connection that we all carry within us, and the profound spiritual authority that lies in embracing the truth of who we truly are. Mary Magdalene's Gospel offers us a glimpse into a different vision of Christianity, one where the divine is not something external that we must earn or seek, but something that is already within us, waiting to be discovered. It's a Christianity that values personal revelation over institutional authority, that recognizes the divine feminine and embraces spiritual equality for all. This gospel, like so many of the ancient texts that have been suppressed or lost to time, carries the truth of what Christianity could have been, a faith of love, wisdom, equality, and deep personal connection with the divine. Through the rediscovery of Mary Magdalene's story, we are not simply learning about a historical figure, we are reclaiming our own spiritual power. We are remembering that the wisdom of the divine is not reserved for a select few, it is available to all of us. The teachings of Mary Magdalene challenge us to trust in our own inner guidance, to embrace our spiritual authority, and to live in alignment with the divine wisdom that resides within us. But it's not just about the teachings of Mary Magdalene, it's about the message that her story carries for us today. We live in a world where many voices are still silenced, where spiritual authority is often dictated by external systems, and where the wisdom of women and marginalized communities continues to be ignored. The story of Mary Magdalene reminds us that it is time to stop looking outside for validation and start trusting the divine truth that lies within us all. It calls us to step into our power, to embrace our spiritual authority, and to honor the divine wisdom that resides within every soul. If this video has touched your heart, if it has illuminated a new path for you or helped you remember the divine wisdom that resides within you, I invite you to support this journey. Your support, in whatever form it takes, helps ensure that this message continues to spread. Together, we are reclaiming lost wisdom, breaking down barriers, and creating a world where all voices are heard and valued. If you feel that this video has brought value to your soul, or if it has helped you find light in the midst of dark times, I humbly ask for your energy, your support, and your engagement. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to continue exploring these sacred truths with me. Every contribution, no matter how small, is invaluable and deeply appreciated. It allows me to continue creating videos that share these powerful teachings, that open hearts, and that help guide us all on our spiritual journey. Thank you from the deepest part of my heart for being here. Your presence, your support, and your willingness to engage with these messages of truth, love, and divine wisdom mean the world to me. Together, we are transforming not just our own lives, but the world around us. Let us continue to walk this path of spiritual awakening, guided by the wisdom of those who came before us, and always in remembrance of the divine light that shines within each of us. As we move forward, remember, the wisdom Mary Magdalene shared is still alive today. It's a wisdom that calls us to trust in our inner truth, to embrace our divine authority, and to live with love, compassion, and authenticity. Let's honor that wisdom and let it guide us toward a future where all are empowered, all are loved, and all are free to express the truth that resides within their hearts. Once again, thank you for being part of this journey. I am deeply grateful for each of you, and I look forward to continuing to share these teachings these messages of love and truth with all of you. Share.